The temperature in Whitestone was always lower than in the rest of the cities. Perhaps the sun forgot that having a sun tree in town doesn't mean it also provides heat. He looked up at the sky. It was of a whitish blue color, and there was the sun, indeed powerless. He wrapped his robe closer to his body and stopped the first boy he saw in his path. Naturally, the child knew where the funny gnome and kind lady lived. The child recognized the magician his parents referred to as Mr. Gilmore. At the dining table they often said, "This town is lucky Lady DeRollo keeps such good company. I saw Mr. Gilmore working on the shield of the town again. This town would be a giant crater if it wasn't for that Gilmore fellow." It had become a family tradition to go over the places they had seen Gilmore each day, working on the shield. It had become a family game. They had to stop playing it when he left town to go back to his business. But now the little boy knew he just won the game. He saw him. He even spoke to him. Without hesitation, the child took Gilmore by the hand and dragged him towards the house he wanted to go to. The magician did not oppose him in the slightest, just awkwardly tried to match the boy's speed without toppling over. He laughed as the boy told him how nice the gnomes were to him. When they finally reached the door, it was just slightly ajar, showing how the two welcomed everybody into their midst. The boy knocked and pushed the door open to show Gilmore the image of Scanlan unpacking paintings. The one which Scanlan was holding up by using Bigby's hand was anything but decent, and when he turned and saw the boy, his eyes widened and Bigby's hand quickly turned the painting towards the wall.
Benny! We're going to start locking that door at some point and you'll have to knock and wait until we open up, okay? You can still come over anytime you want, just let's make that our game, okay?
Scanlan gave him a fair warning. Benny wasn't bothered. He had bigger fish to fry, bigger things to show Scanlan. He pulled Gilmore into the doorframe, pushing the wood aside to show his entire face.
Gilmore!
Scanlan put on the biggest grin. Benny crossed his arms together and gave himself an imaginary pat on the back by nodding with self-importance. He had seen his father do that each time he finished a piece of furniture he had been working on for a long time. He had done well.
Benny, of all the things I made you get me from town, this is by far the most necessary item I didn't even ask for. Good job.
Scanlan went close to the boy, and they were about the same height.
Now, did you get a chance to ask your father for those nails I need?
No, Mr. Shorthalt. I found Mr. Gilmore when I was heading home. I'll go fetch those right away.
The boy cracked a smile.
But since I brought him here, can I have 2 stories tonight instead of just 1? Please?
He put his hands together in a praying gesture. His eyes were intrigued and full of wonder.
I need to know if Clarota was evil or not. How did Vox Machina escape the Underdark?
Yes, little critter. You can have 2 stories. Now go. Mr. Gilmore and I need to talk business a bit.
Scanlan gave in without minding the request that much, and with a loud
Yay!
Benny ran past Gilmore's frame, stopped, came back, looked at Gilmore.
Can I ask you something?
Gilmore bent down to one knee so he could listen.
Can you still do magic?
The man snapped his ringed fingers, and sparks of violet arcane energy popped around his hand.
Whoa!
Any nails?
Oh, right. Bye, Mr. Gilmore, sir.
Benny was waving his hand in front of him as if his conversation partner was miles away instead of inches.
It was a pleasure meeting you, young Penny.
Gilmore let him run out of the house. They were alone just for a couple of seconds because Benny came back, shut the door he left open, and ran away again. They heard his running from inside the house. Gilmore had a smile on his face the whole time.
Children's songs and stories? Now that I think about it, it suits you. Benny seems to like them.
Scanlan made room for Gilmore on the couch, so the man sat down between couples of oversized boxes that were laid all around the house. Obviously, Pike was not home at that time, and he found it extremely convenient.
Oh, Benny? His parents work a lot. Father's a carpenter, mother's a cook at the castle. I needed some supplies one day and asked him for help. He brought everything I asked for in a couple of hours. We grew fond of him, and we just keep an eye on him from time to time when his parents can't. They're good people.
Scanlan instructed Bibby to move the painting into a larger box, and eventually sat next to Gilmore, looking pleased.
You seem to do well with him. Ready to have more?
The simplicity of the conversation mended Gilmore's spirit, and the gnome just looked in a distant corner of the room with a daydreaming nuance to his voice.
I don't know. Certainly if that's what Pike wants.
He looked so pleased indeed.
Although...
He shifted his position, only now realizing the sheer number of wrapped-up paintings and papers.
I think you'll be selling me a lot of minor illusion enchantments.
His eyes moved across all objects in the room.
It has come to my attention today that Pike and I both have a thing for very explicit art. Somehow we've collected more than we should have.
He turned to Gilmore with a faintly worried look.
It's gonna cost me big time, isn't it?
Scanlan could almost hear the money leaving his satchel, since Gilmore's glorious goods had the priciest enchantments, the best in Alexandria, yet the priciest. The merchant in Gilmore raised his hand to his bearded chin.
Why don't you just have a painter modify them?
Are you crazy, man? I still want to be able to zap the spell out of them and look at them, you know?
Scanlan protested very loudly, and Gilmore had no other response than an extended laugh. The gnome's face was laughing as well, until it got a bit darker, and he shook his head. He wanted to shake off the thoughts that got to him.
You've heard about Vax, haven't you?
Yes.
The reply came in a heartbeat. Gilmore's head still tilted on the back edge of the couch, and he closed his eyes.
I also heard about you. What you have tried to do for him.
He was wondering what solace could he bring to the bard who always had his words prepared.
We are unbelievable shits for not telling you sooner.
Scanlan began searching for something in one of the boxes. Maybe, for the first time, he had no excuse that he could just construct on the fly. Truth be told, he had thought about telling Gilmore, but since everything happened too fast, he eventually just discarded it.
We were unfair to you. Maybe you would have wanted to say goodbye as well.
A sharp pain hit Gilmore's stomach. The prospect of sitting there, saying goodbye, terrified him immensely.
Vax didn't want to tell me. You just went along.
From that very open and exposed position, he reverted to sit with his elbows on his knees, stroking his face with both palms. He heard the sound of papers, and when he opened his eyes, there was a parchment the gnome was trying to give him. He took it from Scanlan's hands and opened it to find a list of people and businesses, information and every detail of their services. He recognized some names on the list, as well as some shady businesses he had only heard about.
Those are all my contacts from Oncarel. You probably already have dealings with some of them. I'm giving this to you. Whenever you want to collaborate with them, just mention the Meat Man. Tell them the meat man sends his regards.
Scanlan began searching for something in the box, something non-existent this time, because he had no idea what to say to Gilmore. It felt wrong. It felt unfair. It passed through Gilmore's head that this is what Scanlan wanted to discuss with him. He just handed over some very valuable information. It was clear that Gilmore would not use most of the shady fellows, but one never knows.
Thank you, Scanlan. I'll be making some deals for Sherry.
It seemed perfectly reasonable that the gnome stopped while his eyes questioned him.
I'll still be in charge of the business, but I've decided to give her the shop in Iman.
It was an idea that had been looming over his head for quite some time. Nobody knew about it. He actually didn't even express the idea in a full sentence until now.
Where are you going?
Gilmore got up and set the folded parchment into his bag of holding. He had no definitive answer to that because nothing in life was definitive, so it seemed. He extended his arms.
The world awaits. Now that you've made it safe again. Who knows? Maybe I'll get to see more of it until the next disaster.
He started heading to the door.
It was nice seeing you, Gilmore.
I'll have Sherry send you a bunch of those enchantments.
As he wanted to touch the doorknob, he heard heavy footsteps from the outside. He jumped a step backwards as soon as he sensed that the door moved towards his face. In front of him, the giant frame of Grog Strongjaw blocked the door. Grog took a step backward as well and moved his head around, assessing the surroundings with a frown on his face. He looked at Gilmore, he looked at the house, then back at Gilmore, as Scanlan appeared between them.
It's alright, Grog. You didn't open the wrong door. It's my house. Gilmore was just visiting.
The bard sounded impossibly amused.
But I Gilmore.
Grog bowed his head way too low for the common Mercesian courtesy.
Hello, big man. I should have imagined you'd be here in Whitestone.
Pretty much imitating Benny's actions, Grog folded his arms with pride.
Yes. Duty calls. I had to include the Raven's Rest in my official Grand Poobah tour.
The name immediately caught Gilmore's attention.
Grog! No! Shh!
Scanlan's voice squeaked from below. Probably Grog didn't even hear him because he continued nonchalantly.
People want to see the bench, and what other great storyteller to tell them about it?
The barbarian lowered his eyes towards Scanlan and finally remarked the gnome's not-so-subtle gestures. Scanlan tried waving at Grog, but since the big fellow had his nose up high, he couldn't see him, so he resorted to hitting Grog's leg.
Shit!
The bard turned to Gilmore.
They named it after ravens?
No, silly. They named it after Vax. You know, the bench is there. Like you don't know about Pike's bench for Vax. No!
Grog was scratching his head. Scanlan threw his arms in the air with a sign that he's been defeated. Grog could not possibly take a hint. All the money in the world couldn't buy Grog a hint. He gave up and turned to Gilmore, who had a mixture of confusion and humor carved on his expression. He just glanced at Scanlan with a nod and continued to talk to Grog.
Where is this bench? Where is Raven's Rest?
If Grog would have had a business hat in his bag of holding, this would have been the best moment to put it on.
If you wish to go on a tour, I'll have you know that we are closed for the day. You can pay the fares tomorrow, and I'll escort you.
Scanlan's voice immediately followed Grog's.
Jeez, I can't believe believe this! Grog, your heart is surpassed only by the greatness of your mouth. Could you at least tell him where it is?
Oh, okay. It's at the edge of the woods. Real pretty there too.
He shut up suddenly because Scanlan was shaking his head in the same manner Vex did when he was bad. The Goliath decided to just let the deal slide.
You get an ally discount then. But that doesn't include me walking you there.
Gilmore didn't mind in the slightest. He knew the direction he should be heading in. Thanking the Grand Poobah, he bowed in an exaggerated Marquesian manner, and Grog seemed more than pleased.
Beep beep.
Grog made room for him to exit. Before stepping out, Gilmore took one last glance at Scanlan, smiling, and his lips formed a silent "thank you." As soon as he shut the door to Scanlan's house, he heard the bard's voice shouting again at the massive Goliath.
You're kidding me! We almost killed him the last time we saw him, out of a mistake! And now you're asking him for money to tell him where Vax's monument is? Vax! Of all people!
The secret was that the door to Scanlan's house didn't actually shut at times. Gilmore learned that when he realized he could hear them from the street. Grog's sheepish voice came through the crack.
Did I fuck up?
No, you've just been learning from me far too well. It's better that he knows anyway.
Scanlan looked at Gilmore's frame disappear, yet Gilmore did not hear the last sentence. He was wondering how marvelous it was that he didn't have to leave Scanlan alone and in silence between all those boxes. Silence wasn't a good guest right now, in anybody's house. There was a friend he would have also left to talk to right now, but that friend was gone. There were voices in the streets, but horrendously, none of them were his. Gilmore felt powerless, just like the white stone sun. He tried focusing on any minute warmth coming from its rays. "Not here, not today," said the sun mockingly.